Welcome, welcome, welcome to another journey of steps to my true self. Today, the question is magic, mushrooms, ayahuasca, psychedelic drugs, and intoxication. Does it give you a spiritual experience, or are you just journeying into the mind? And what exactly is a spiritual experience? If you want to go on the journey of the self, of knowing who you are, then do not take any psychedelic drugs, ayahuasca, mushroom, any kind of intoxication. Because what happens when you take that is that the body becomes impure and the self leaves the body. The disembodied duality consciousness beings, they like when this happens because you get into the mind, you freak the mind out. And so you're going into the mental aspect of the mind, into the memory bank, the storehouse is that, and it's like you're breaking into it. And there is a more gentle and easy way to go about it. And especially for those who want to know the truth of self, then I say this is not the route for you. But and people who are doing this and does not have a guide, and it's very unsafe. It's very unsafe for you to do. And for the people who are following a master and you have a guide who's guiding you, for the people who are having the mental issues and all those things and want to get into the mind, I understand why you're doing it. But for all the people, if you want a self experience, then this is not the way to go, because all you're doing is going into the mind. You're going into the consciousness. That's what you're doing. You're going into the mind, into the ego, and you're going into memory, because the ego is only a memory and imagination. You can never know the true self when you enter into these anything, into this illusionary world. Only into the memory. You can go into the memory. If you want the truth of yourself, then you want to awake the sleeping self. The sleeping self, the great I am, is sleeping and it's obscure behind the mind. And what's happening is that the self is trance inside of the sleep, in the dream, because the mind is putting the self in a trance. And so the thing is that you have to wake the self up. This is at the root of all issue, the mental issue, the depression, because I myself went through it. I went through it when I was a duality being. When I was a duality being, I went through it. Now I'm a partial duality. So myself, the light is shining, but the consciousness is duality. So that's how you become a partial duality being. Like for many out there, they are just duality being. With the God self is sleeping. And so it needs to be awakened. This is the reason why we have the mental issue. So what we're really feeling is the detrimental ramification of duality. Because in duality, the consciousness and the light is separated, right? In the non-duality, in the real self, in your true existence, consciousness and the light is indivisible, and here in duality they are separated. This is the reason for all our depression and our mental issue. When we come of age, the sleeping self wants to wake up and wants to come into truth. And this is the agony. This is the agony that we feel. And this is all of these things that's happening, why we have to do this. And so because of the agony that's going on within us, and we can't put our hand on it, we can't really understand it. But that's what's really happening. It's a deep, deep issue stemming from the self sleeping. Our depression is that the self is in agony. The soul is in slavery, and that's what it's trying to tell us. And it's the reason why we get depressed. I went through the whole thing. I didn't understand it, but the difference is that I awaken up the great I am. Right? When I awake the great I am, the soul can communicate now, because the soul is communicating to the great I am, saying that It's in bondage and it's in slavery and needs to be freed. And so this is how, the self get on the journey to freeing its own soul. And this is what's happening within all of us. When we come of age, there's a thing that awakes within us that wants us to do this thing, wants us to rise up. Yeah, and so this is what needs to happen. This is why we're having this mental issue. But we are forever looking outside of ourselves, and everything in this world is illusionary. This is a dream world, dream things, dream creation, dream body to explore the dream world. Where you're searching inside the illusion for the truth and the real, and you can never find it. Only the self is real. And to know the real and experience the real, you have to wake the sleeping self up. Because the soul is already awake, but it is in bondage to the consciousness disembodied duality beings them. They have enslaved the soul. This is why you're in agony. This is why you're suffering. This is why this deep depression that people are having in the mind and the consciousness. So let's get to the root of the issue. Let's solve the problem at the root. Because this is the root of our problem. We have to get to the root of the problem. So you can pacify it. You can do, because I remember when I was going through the depression, and then and thoughts will come to you of something wanting to die. But you don't know what wanting to die. So people will take drugs because they want to escape it. But it's time for you to face it. Face it by self-inquiry within yourself. Who am I? What is this thing inside me that wants to die? The ego has to be castrated. The self wants to rise and the ego must die. That's what needs to die. This old self that you have must die for the real self to come awake, to come alive. Yeah, so when you're getting those feelings of dying, and when because when you take these drugs, especially if you're not under proper guidance, the beings come, and in some circles, because I've seen it in many circles, where those shamans, they're not real, and they're calling these beings, and the beings are coming, and they're taking the light, taking the souls of all the people in the group. And then some of them now ended up take such possession of the people that people start doing all kind of sex with each other, all different kind of things. So the groups them varied depending on what's happening. So you have to be very careful. I know the medical group now, they're doing research on these things, and that's a different kind of environment from when you're in a shaman who just wants to make money from it, because they know everything is the in thing. Everybody wants to make money from it, and so a lot of people are calling themselves shamans and putting a lot of people in danger, and it needs to stop. Because I am primalite, prepared for the world, with the identity are set. I am the liberator and the advocate for all soul. And since the soul is speaking to you and you're not listening, I'm telling you what is wrong. This video is sharing that I'm advocating for all the souls. So all souls must be free, because when you do that, they call those beings, the beings come, because the being wants your light. You're opening up yourself to a big problem. They come and they take your light and they enslave your soul, and you don't know that your soul is not in your body. Yeah, because thousands of people, I've met lots of people, they don't have their soul, because those beings have their soul, because they go and they do these things. The beings, they take your soul, they take your light, and you just have the ego in there, and you're just following the ego, and they can control your mind. And then you start getting all of these sexual feelings. They put all these feelings into you. When even sometimes when you're not even like that, they come and every time you get some light, they come and they take it. You feel yourself drained and all these things. This is what these beings will do. Yeah, so now is the time to awake the sleeping self, because that is our issue. Awake the sleeping self, obscure behind the mind, castrate the ego, and come into the real, come into awareness, and know that the real self is sleeping. This is a dream world, dream things, dream creation, and if you stop, and if you leave the dream things and dream creation and start focusing on the self, this is at the root of all the issues in the world. If you start focusing on the self, liberating the self from this bondage The self is in bondage. When I'm telling you that your soul is in slavery, I want you to believe me. Yes, and you can call on every expert for everything, but I am the expert on the self, and I challenge all pastors, all gurus, all spiritual teachers. False information. Yes, some of them are giving us some truth, but that's not the whole truth. Yes, so let's get to the root of this issue. Let's get to the root of this issue. Let's get to the root of this matter. And let's solve this for once and for all, so that we can dissolve this duality and move into the non-duality. This is our issue. Our issue is the duality. We are duality beings exploring in a duality dream world. And the other aspect of ourselves, the duality disembodied consciousness beings them. They are tricking you. Yeah, and so creating this environment. So, because when you go into and you freak the mind out and you freak the self out, and they come and take the self. This is what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? And I say that I'm advocating for all the souls, for all souls need to be free. You need to liberate the sleeping self. Wake up from the dream.